A very good afternoon to everyone tuning in, and welcome to the NSA e-Nugget series, How to be Financially Competent in Singapore, by Singapore Professionals and Executives Cooperative, also known as SPEC, in partnership with Diverse Learning as part of the National Silver Academy. My name is Ranford Neo, representing SPEC, and I'll be your speaker for today. So I hope you will enjoy today's session as much as I've enjoyed preparing it for you. So just a quick disclaimer before we begin. So this session is intended for educational purposes only and do not replace the independent professional judgment. Statements of facts and opinions expressed are those of the participants individually, and unless expressly stated to the contrary, are not the opinions of the or position of the presenter. So contents in this presentation are subjected to changes and updates, thereby making it irrelevant at any time. So before we begin, let's do a quick poll. So do you agree managing money is important in our daily lives? So if you think that it's important, type yes, and if you think that's not important, you can put a no. So submit your answers through the Facebook poll right now. So while waiting for the results to come in, let's talk about money. I believe many of us have heard before this saying, while we are growing up, things like money makes the world go round, or money is the root of all evil. Wow. Okay, so money is actually a medium for exchange, and money in general, doesn't have, it's neutral, right? It's the emotions that we attach to money, that we create, that has all these stories involved. And that's the purpose of today's session, because at the end of the day, we want to take an objective approach, all right, to see how can we manage money. Okay, so I see that the results are in. Okay, great. And majority of y'all say yes. All right, so yes, all right, managing money is important in our daily lives. All right, and that's the reason why, we are doing today's session, is to start to help you see, or start to help you remove this emotional attachment to money, or that money has, due to the conversations that we have growing up or through the people around us, so that we can have a better grasp, of what money is and what money management is. Okay, so this will be today's session outline. So the first part, I'll be sharing with you will be Personal Finance 101. All right, so what is personal finance? What are some of the components of a personal finance plan? And maybe I'll share with you some tips, on how to improve your financial health. And of course, some ways to keep track of your personal finances. So the next part I'll be sharing with you will be things or the various, what the various statutory boards, right, have in place, right, to help us cater to the lifestyle that is unique to Singaporeans, and how we can actually tap on or leverage on all these initiatives to help us with our asset building or our wealth accumulation plans. And the last part will be, I'll be sharing with you a bit more on how you can learn about money management the gamified way. All right, so at the end of today's session, I'll also will put aside some time for Q&A, so you can ask me any questions that you have. All right, so this is actually a live session. So from time to time, feel free to type in the Facebook comment section on some of the things, or some of the things that you have learned, so that all the people who are watching in right now can learn as well. So why talk about money? All right, why talk about money? I'm not sure if all of you can relate, but I believe from our friends and family, we will hear conversations like things like, "Wow, jialat lah, this month got not enough money leh. How or things like, "Wow, the recent pay cut, that I've experienced is very, very painful," or I believe this is a very popular one, or more commonly heard of one would be things like, at the end of the month, I don't know where my money disappeared to. Okay, so conversations like this about money is what we hear all the time. Okay, and the reason why we want to talk about money is because money is actually a very, very important part of our daily lives. And if it's not managed well, it could form be a huge stressor in our day-to-day living. So money is such an important subject, or such a talked about subject, that even our local production, there was a local production that made a film out of it, called Money No Enough, all right, or 钱不够用 in Chinese, all right, and this movie talks about the various problems Singaporeans face, due to money or money management. So that's the whole purpose of why we want to talk about money, is so that we are aware, of what money is, how can we better manage it, and at the same time lead a more fulfilled and a more enjoyable life. So moving on, right now I'll be talking about this thing called personal finance. Right? So what is personal finance? Right? Personal finance is actually the management of money and financial resources of an individual or a family to fulfill life goals using financial planning techniques. All right, so I'm going to take note of this definition of personal finance. So there's 3 keywords or 3 key components to take note of. And the first one would be the management of money and financial resources. Right, the second one would be to fulfill life goals. Okay, and the last one would be by using financial planning techniques. So with this definition of personal finance in place, there's no one-size-fits-all template, right? But the beauty of it is that we have the power to make our finances work best for us. All right. So at the end of the day, the reason why we want to know what personal finance is, the reason why we want to be able to better manage our money is because at the end of the day, we want to live a more balanced, healthy, happy, and stress-free life, right? While achieving our life goals by taking or making smart financial decisions. Yeah, so that's at the end of the day, the reason why money management is important or why personal finance is important is because all of us have different life goals we want to achieve. All of us have different dreams, desires, and aspirations that we want to achieve. And at the end of the day, when we are able to make smart financial decisions, or when we are able to manage our finances well, we will be able to achieve all these goals. So here's the components. Here are some of the components of a personal finance plan. All right, so I've broken them down into 2 parts. Right, the first one will be your income, all right, and your expenses. So let me spend some time, to run through each component, so we have a better idea of what each of them means. Okay, so the first part is actually your income. So income is whatever money that you are making. Okay, it could be from your full-time job, it could be from your part-time job. Some of you tuning in right now, you all could be retired, semi-retired. So it could be from some of the part-time jobs that you're doing, to pass time, or for some of you here, who are running your own business or self-employed, it could be from the products that you sell or from the services that you offer in exchange for cash. Okay, so this is what income is, right? Whatever money that is coming in. Okay, expenses, right, is whatever money that is going out. Yeah, so expenses could be things like what you're spending on a regular basis to upkeep your current day-to-day living, basic necessities such as your transportation, your food. It could be things like your clothing, right? So these are your expenses. And then if you want to live increase or boost the quality of your life or standard of living, you could maybe splurge a bit on luxury products or things for you to enjoy, your current lives. So what is cash flow? So cash flow is just your income, whatever that you are making, okay, minusing out all your expenses, okay, and that would be your cash flow. So we want to achieve a positive cash flow, all right, which means that the income that you're bringing in is more than your expenses. So that's the whole part of knowing where your income is, or where your income is, or where your money is coming from, and where your money is going out to. Okay, so that's the first part of your personal finance plan. The next part will be this thing called assets, liabilities, and what is your net assets. Okay, so assets is things that you own. Okay, so it could be things like your house, your car. All of us have our mobile devices, your laptop. So things that you own forms part of your assets. So some of you might even be run your own business. Your business could also be part of your assets. And some of you might be into investments. So investments is also your forms part of your assets. So liabilities are things that you owe, right? So things like your student loans, your bank loans, your mortgage, probably your credit card debts. Yeah, so all these are the things that you owe. Okay, and what forms your net assets would be your assets, your total assets minus your total liabilities, and that is your net assets, or what we call your net worth. So at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to increase, our cash flow, and at the same time we want to increase our net assets or our net worth. So this brings me to my next point, right, which is I'll be sharing, which is some of the tips, right, that I have, right, on how we can actually improve our financial health, or how you can improve your financial health. Okay, so the first tip would be to start to explore some of the acquiring income producing assets. So income producing assets, what I mean by this, for example, you could start to explore acquiring assets that can help you generate an income or generate a profit. So things like probably a stock or a share, that provides dividends. Yeah, so you'll be getting income after acquiring such assets, as compared to owning an asset that doesn't generate you an income or cash flow, things like your car, okay, or maybe your computer or your phone. Okay, so that's the first tip, all right, that you can consider or think of, on how you can improve your financial health. So the next tip would be to clear your existing liabilities. So have a look at, at what are some of the existing liabilities that you currently have. You have a loan, that you are currently servicing for months or years, or it could be some debt, anything that you owe, that you have been paying so frequently, that you actually forgot about it. Yeah, so this is another area you could start to see, on what are some of the things you can do, right, to clear your existing liabilities. So the third tip, all right, would be to find ways to increase your income. Yeah, so start to see what are the things that you can actually do to generate you more income. It could be selling, with the advancement in technology. Some of you could start your own e-commerce stores. Some of you with the skills, that you have acquired over the years during your professional career. These are some of the skills that maybe you could consider monetizing. Yeah, so that's the third way you could think of or you could consider, and that is to increase your income. Okay, and the last way would be to reduce your ongoing expenses. Okay, so start to see, after this session, maybe you could start to have a list of all the expenses that you are currently paying. Some of the expenses could be one-off expenses. Some of the expenses could be recurring expenses. And have a look, what are some of the things that you are currently paying for, right, but not fully utilizing. Or it could be something like a membership, that you are using, or it could be something that, you are paying, now all of us, we put things on gyro, right? We put things on gyro. Sometimes we overlook, we just pay, and we don't even know what we are paying for. So that's the last tip, all right, on how you can actually improve your financial health, and that is to have a review, of what are some of the ongoing expenses that you're currently paying for, but not fully utilizing. So at this point, I'd like you all to leave a comment in the Facebook chat below on some of the tips, or some of the tips that you personally are practicing, to help to improve your own financial health. Yeah, so leave in the comments section below, for all of them, or all of us tuning in right now to learn, and we could actually consider, all right, as well. Okay, so expanding on the point on reducing your ongoing expenses, some of the ways or additional ways you could think of would be to look out for special deals. So C3A actually has a website, right? The special deals website, right, called c3a.org.sg/deals-listing, right, where they actually put up special deals from time to time for us to save, so there are things I see: senior special, 50% off Singapore cable car, and set meal. Yeah, so this is a good way, of saving more, while not compromising on your standard of living or your quality of life. So keep a lookout for all these special deals. And the next point will be things like flash sales and discounts. Right, so all of us love this sales and discounts, right? Or your GSS. But recently, in more recent times, we have this thing called the 11-11, the 12-12, the 13-13. Okay, just saying, there's no 13-13. Okay, or the more recently, the more recent sale called the 7-7 sale. Yeah, so flash sales is a time where a lot of products or services on the market will be sold at a very a discounted rate. It could be as much as 60-70% off, and that's the time where we can actually get a good deal, right, in purchasing the things that we want to buy. So my personal tip, is to always put whatever you want to buy, on your wish list, or on your shopping cart, right? So whenever a flash deal appears, you can get it at a best price. Okay, and of course, discounts at your nearest grocery stores. Look out for some discounts or discount coupons, right? And see if there's any way you can actually save when you are spending. Okay, so right now I want to share with you 3 ways to keep track of your personal finances. Yeah, so at the end of the day, we want to measure, right? We want to measure what we expect. We want to measure what we expect, and personal finance is no different. Okay, so there's actually 3 ways for us, or 3 ways most of us keep track of our personal finances. The first way is the conventional pen and paper style, right? We write it in our journals or in our notebooks. And for those of you who are watching it right now, you might be familiar with this probably 555 notebook. Yeah, for me, during my time, we have this blue notebook, yeah, where we actually document how much we spend every day, how much money we have, our allowance, and for those of you who run your own business, your accountant will have this huge book, right, to document the income for the day, the sales made, the expenses done. And this is the conventional way of keeping track of our personal finances, the pen and paper style. Okay, so the next way would be through an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so personally for me, I use an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of my personal finances. So I've been doing so for more than 10 years, actually 13 years to be exact. And one of the benefits of using an Excel spreadsheet is that it has a lot of formulas, right? You can actually use the formulas to key in, or to help you tabulate what are some of the things that you want to keep track of. And if you're very proficient, or if you're more proficient with using this software, you can actually also create formulas, create pie charts, create graphs, so that at one glance you are able to see where what are the assets that you have, what are the liabilities that you have, what's your income, your cash flow, and your expenses. So Excel spreadsheet is actually another way you can use to keep track of your personal finances, right? And the last way, or the more trending way right now, or the trend moving forward, is using mobile applications or mobile apps. Yeah, so all of us have a mobile device, and the benefit of using a mobile app to keep track of your personal finances is, firstly, we can actually use it on the go. Yeah, you don't need to open up your laptop, to key in the information, and at one glance, you can, whenever you want it, you can actually open it up, your app, and then you can key in, you can keep track, and that's a very, very convenient way to at one glance know what your current financial position is. Okay, so for these mobile apps will probably be for the younger generation. So for example, my sister, right now she's actually using a mobile app, right, to keep track of her own personal finances. Yeah, so at this point, I want you to, for those of you who are tuning in right now, key in the Facebook comment section, what are some of the ways you're currently keeping track of your personal finances, right? And maybe, if there's any other ways that you are currently keeping track of your finances that is not mentioned in this 3 points. Okay, go ahead and key in the comment section right now. So the next segment, I would like to share, all right, what are some of the various statutory boards, or what are some of the various statutory boards, what are some of the various statutory boards, the initiatives that the various statutory boards have in place that caters to the lifestyle that's unique to Singaporeans. So this list is not exhaustive, right? It's not exhaustive, all right, but I've selected a few agencies or statutory boards that's more relevant to the topic of personal finance and financial management. So we have things like the CPF, right, the Central Provision Fund Board, right, which covers things like our healthcare needs, our housing needs, our education needs, medical needs, and even investment needs. Right, the HDB, Housing Development Board, which provides us a roof over our heads. Right, the baby bonus, right? Baby bonus is actually an initiative by MSF, right? And baby bonus is actually to help to reduce the financial burden of raising children here in Singapore. So for those of you who have kids, and your kids are thinking of starting their own family, you can actually share with them, the baby bonus scheme, and how it can actually help them to reduce some of the costs in terms of raising their children here in Singapore. Okay, so the fourth one is actually Skills Future Singapore, right? For us to upskill, reskill, or even pick up a new skill. And lastly is Enterprise Singapore. So for those of you who are running your own business, your own small business, how some of these initiatives, by this agency can actually help us in terms of our financial planning or our asset accumulation plans. Okay, so in the interest of time, I will not be covering each of these agencies, all right, but I'll be just sharing with you briefly, on what are some of the initiatives each agency or each statutory board has in place for you to have an idea, of how you can actually tap on it, leverage it, and integrate it to be part of your personal financial planning. So the first one is actually CPF, right? So CPF is actually a mandatory and comprehensive social security saving system that enables working Singapore citizens and permanent residents to set aside funds for retirement contributed monthly by employers and employees. So like what I mentioned earlier, CPF also serves the needs of healthcare, home ownership, family protection, and your asset enhancement. So I believe most of you are aware. Okay, so CPF actually has 4 components, right? The first component is our ordinary account, right? Which is used for things like our housing, insurance, investment, and even education. The special account, right? For investment and for retirement. Okay, the MediSave account, which is for our medical and insurance needs. And lastly, our retirement account, okay, which will be automatically created by combining our ordinary and special account when you hit your 55th birthday. Okay, so I believe those of you who are tuning in, most of you will be familiar with this retirement account. Okay, so each component of our CPF is used for specific purposes, things like savings, loans, and retirement. So start to think, on how you can actually tap on, or how you can actually integrate, CPF in your financial planning or your asset building plans. So for further information and updated information, please visit the website www.cpf.gov.sg. So the next agency or statutory board is this one called Enterprise Singapore. So for those of you who are tuning in, who run your own small business, your own mom and pop store, or if you have already retired and you're thinking of passing down your business to your children or to the next generation, you can actually think of looking into Enterprise Singapore, right? They're actually a government agency championing enterprise development, right? So they actually are committed to work with local companies to build capabilities, to see how you can actually innovate and how you can actually internationalize. So at the end of the day, it's about helping you grow your business. And with that, they actually have a lot of grants available. So start to see, how you can actually tap on such grants and how it can actually help you grow, or expand on your capabilities in your business. Okay, so for further and updated information, feel free to visit www.enterprisesg.gov.sg. So this is an initiative, or this is a statutory board to help more specifically with business development. So the last part, okay, or the last agency, I'd like to touch on briefly would be this area on career development, right? Tapping on your Skills Future credits and even subsidies. So Skills Future Singapore is actually a national movement to provide Singaporeans with the opportunities to develop to their fullest potential throughout life, right? Regardless of their starting points. So through Skills Future Singapore, there's actually a lot of courses, a lot of training, a lot of things you can actually learn, and they actually have a few objectives. The first one is for you to pick up a new skill. Yeah, so if you are retired, semi-retired, you have some of the things that you have always wanted to learn, when you were younger, this is the best time, for you to pick up this skill, all right, and tap on the Skills Future funding, where they actually provide sponsored training programs or reduced tuition fees, all right, for you to learn a new skill, and in turn, it might be even able to help you generate an income. Yeah, so that's the first part. The second one would be for you to reskill. Due to the pandemic, probably some of you might be displaced, or you might have lost your job. So no worries. You can always use Skills Future, or look at what are some of the courses available in Skills Future to help you to reskill, and then from there pick up new skills and competencies and explore maybe going to a new industry. Right, and the last one is for you to upskill, right? For you to upskill, so you can explore, see what are some of the programs that are available, right? That Skills Future Singapore is actually funding, so to help you upskill to get the promotion that you're always working towards. So these are the ways, that in terms of career development, that can actually help you maybe boost your income, right, or give you an additional income. And Skills Future Singapore is one area, that you can actually look into or tap on to see what are some of the subsidies available to help you pick up new skills, reskill, or even upskill. So for further and updated information, please visit their website, skillsfuture.gov.sg. So coming to the last segment of today's session, and that will be the benefits of learning about money through a game. So like what we discussed about earlier in today's session, money is actually a very important part of our lives, and we don't usually talk about money or money management over the dinner table. All right, so some of the benefits of learning about money or talking about money or money management through a game is that it is actually a very good conversational starter. Okay, besides that, learning about money through games is very, very fun, very, very interactive, and you can it takes away all the stress and the taboo, okay, of talking about money. And best of all, it's actually a very, very good bonding activity with our family and friends. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard this saying before, okay, but they say, a person's true character comes out on the mahjong table. Okay, and that's true, to a large extent, because by playing a game, it really brings out, innately, who we are as a person, and it's a very good opportunity due to maybe the competitive nature of games or the interactive nature of games, that it will allow us to have some self-discovery, of our own money management habits, our own personal behaviors, that we are unaware of. Yeah, so playing a game, or being in or getting involved in games, is a very, very safe environment for us to learn more about ourselves, and at the same time for us to reflect. Okay, for us to reflect and for us to discover, right, what are some of our money management habits or our attitude towards money. Okay, so at this point, I would like you all to type in the comment section, what are some of the games that you have actually played before, that revolves around money, that revolves around money management, for all the viewers tuning in right now to have an idea or to see, what are some of the games that you all can actually explore playing, so that you can learn more about money or money management. Okay, so I'd like to share with you two examples, all right, of learning about money through or learning about money management through games, right? And then it is two aspects. Okay, two aspects. The first aspect is about game-based learning. Okay, game-based learning, and the other aspect is on the gamification of learning. Right. So in terms of game-based learning, right, there's this board game called the Asset Finesse game. So this game is actually invented by Singaporeans for Singaporeans to teach about personal finance and money management in the Singapore context. So by playing this game, the players will be able to learn the different components of a personal finance plan. Components such as what we have covered earlier, things like assets, liabilities, income, expenses, and cash flow. So they also be able to understand the national pension plan, right? In this case, it will be our CPF, right? And then how it can actually help in terms of our asset building plans within the Singapore lifestyle framework. All right. And lastly, it will help you to be more proficient or be more familiar with documenting or making calculations and recording it, on this thing called a personal financial statement. Okay, so for those of you who have not heard of the asset finesse game before, just imagine, this is the monopoly, of personal finance, right? The monopoly of personal finance. All right. So by playing this game, and through game-based learning, people will learn, players or people will be able to learn about their own money management habits, and have a fun time, bonding with their friends and family as well. So about the gamification of learning, an example I found would be this thing called the CPF volunteering or CPFV. Yeah, so CPFV is actually a mobile application, launched by the CPF board, right? And it is what they want to inculcate, all right, would be the gamification of learning, right? So through this CPFV, they actually have gathered a group of volunteers, right, to share with all the people who have downloaded this app on some of the benefits or some of the things they have benefited while tapping on the CPF. Okay, so in this game, is for all the users, right, to share each other their personal experiences, and at the same time, you're able to collect badges, or gain experience by completing certain tasks or doing some actions, right? And this is actually a very, very fun and interactive way of learning. And like what CPF board has mentioned, through a gamified experience, volunteers, members, and even users, right, will be able to earn experience points and at the same time learn more about the CPF system. Okay, so these are some of two examples of how game-based learning, gamification of learning can actually help us start the conversation, about money, help us talk about money and money management. So in summary, here's how you can be financially competent in Singapore, right? So first of all, know the components of a personal finance plan, right? Keep track of your personal finances, right? Start to see or start to explore what are some of the agencies or some of the statutory boards out there, and start to uncover or start to do some research to see what are some of the initiatives each of these statutory board have in place that is suitable for our lifestyle, okay, and see how you can actually integrate it into your asset building or your personal financial planning. Okay, learn about money, right, or money management strategies. From there, learn about money and money management strategies through structured play or structured game activities, and have a good time as well. Okay, and lastly, right, if personal finance or financial management or financial planning is a topic that you are very keen to explore, feel free to share your experience as a professional, probably getting a job in this career, or as a volunteer, because the more we share, right, the more we learn. So with that, I've come to the end of my session, and right now it's actually Q&A time. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the Facebook comments below, and I will answer them shortly. Okay, so the first question I have over here is, see, what are some of the mobile apps you will recommend to keep track of my personal finances? Okay, so there's actually two mobile apps that I've heard of. Okay, the first one will be this mobile app called Money, Monny. Yeah, Money. And the other one is this app called Money Management. Yeah, so Money Management, that one is you see when you're going into Google Play or iTunes, is this little piggy icon, little piggy icon. Right, so these are some of the apps you can download and then have a go. Okay, so just take note, some apps, some applications are paid, some applications are free. So these are some of the applications you can explore. But of course, for a quick way to find out what some of the other applications available, you can actually also have a quick search, okay, on your Google Play or your iTunes, and look at the reviews and see which are the apps that you find it useful. Okay, so next question I have is, what are some of the ways I can increase my income and reduce my expenses? Okay, so that's a good question. So these are some of the, like what I mentioned earlier, the tips, okay, some tips to improve our financial health. Okay, so one of the ways you could think of in terms of increasing your income would be maybe picking up a skill. Okay, picking up a skill. Start to think of what are some of the skills that you are really good at, or some of the skills that you are already very proficient, and then start to see, is there any way I can actually monetize it? Okay, so that will be one way for you to increase your income. Okay, so for business owners, or for those of you who are running your own self-employed or running your own small business, start to explore if there's, also see if there's any other products, any other innovative services that you could offer, and that will be able to help you generate more income as well. Okay, to answer the question about how to reduce your expenses, okay, the first step would be, of course, to list down all the expenses that you currently have. Probably could take last month's expenses or the last 3 months expenses, and start to do a review. Check off, one by one your checklist, or one by one, what are some of the expenses that are mandatory, okay, and some of the expenses that you are not fully utilizing. Okay, so for those expenses that are mandatory, start to see if there's any alternatives where you can actually save money. It could be your telco bill, it could be your utilities bill. Start to see whether you can do a simple switch, all right, and then maybe this simple switch can help you save 20-30%, and all these cost savings would add up. Okay, so thank you so much for the question. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay, so the next question I have is it too late to start managing finances when we are already deep in debt? Wow, this is a very good question. Okay, so my answer to that would be, it's never too late, right, when you are ready to begin. Okay, it's never too late when you are ready to begin. So first of all, you need to start to restructure. Okay, restructure, or start to have a very, very serious look into your personal finances. Start to see whether if there's any way you can actually restructure your debt, the debt that you're actually having now, right? And see if there's any ways to reduce it, okay, and reduce it as quickly as possible. Okay, so that's the first step. Okay, the second step would be to see explore ways or to increase your income, so that you could actually try to reduce your debt as quickly as possible. So like what we have discussed earlier this afternoon, yeah, at the end of the day, money is something that is neutral. Yeah, it's just a medium of exchange for goods and services. Yeah, so it's us, that we put the emotions attached to it. Yeah, so by being very objective, right, about money, being very objective about personal finance and financial planning, we can take out the emotions, and start to solve the problem, right, one step at a time. All right, so it's never too late. All right, it's never too late. And it's always good to start today. Okay, very good. Good question. Okay, so the next question is, how can one teach grandchildren about the concept of money? Okay, that's a very, very good question. And it's good that you ask this question because it's always good to start them young. Yeah, so the first way, of course, is to, if you're going to talk about money right off the bat, it might maybe seem a bit intrusive, or you might maybe scare off your your grandkids. Okay, so start by simple questions, simple questions or conversations. If they are very young, start to ask them things like, hey, how much are you getting for your allowance? Yeah, what are you spending on spending your allowance? What are some of the things that you are spending on a daily basis? You can ask them things like, are you keeping track, of your money that you are getting, and then the things that you are spending on. Yeah, so ask them simple questions like this. Okay, and then for your older grandkids, maybe those who are already in their teens, you can start to ask them things like, have you thought of how your parents are earning their money? Yeah, do you think it's easy? Do you think it's difficult? Start to ask them questions like this, all right, and then start to get them to think of how, maybe some of the ways they can actually earn an income on their own as well. Yeah, so these are some of the questions you can start to ask to start the conversation. And of course, another way would be to start a conversation by playing games. Yeah, by playing games. So through game-based learning or by playing games is a more casual, a more fun, and a more interactive way, to have a conversation or as a conversation starter to talk about the concept of money and money management. Okay, so the next question is, I remember, is inflation up? What should we deal with the rising inflation? Okay, so that's a good question. Okay, so at the end of the day, inflation is something that is inevitable. Yeah, inflation is something that will keep on rising. So one of the ways I would suggest, right, to keep up with your inflation is to monitor, right, the income. Okay, so we talk about the components of a personal financial plan. So there's the two main components, your income component and your asset component. So at the end of the day is to keep track or monitor your income component. So first of all, if you are in a full-time job, is your monthly salary, keeping up with inflation. So if it's not, what are some of the ways that you can actually do, or what are some of the things that you can actually do to make more income? Okay, so that's actually fundamentally what you should look at in terms of keeping up with inflation. Okay, so the other aspect or the other way you could think of would be things like, are there any assets? Are there any assets that I could acquire that would generate me an income? Okay, that will generate me an income. So this one could supplement or could help you cover, right, the cost of inflation or the rising cost of inflation. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. So at the end of the day, we go back to our the components of our personal finance plan, and then we see how we can actually make do, all right, or how we can actually mitigate, all right, the cost of inflation. Okay, so next question is, can we use digibank apps to keep track of our financial health? Yes, definitely. Yeah, so great that you brought this up, because I've noticed, for me, I'm actually a DBS user. I've noticed that they actually have rolled out some interesting apps, some of the NAV planner, and these are some of the ways, or some of the things that you can actually leverage on or tap on to help you keep track of your financial health as well. And the good thing is that it's actually very convenient because it's kind of like a one-stop, right? One-stop. You're looking through your bank statements, and at the same time you can actually review. All right, review, and some of them they are even able to integrate with the other various banks. Okay, good. So the next question I have is, what's the difference between assets and investments? Yeah, okay, so this is actually a very good question. Okay, so the difference between assets and investments is that assets, right, is something that you own, right? While investments is something that you own, okay, with the intention of making a profit. Okay, so to give you an example, assets is things that you own, right? It could be things like your car, your house, a car for you to use for transportation, or a house for you to live in. So by owning an asset or assets, it is for you to, it's just for your own consumption, okay, for your own consumption. Whereas investments, right, is something that you acquire, okay, that with the intention of generating a profit. So for example, if I purchase this stocks and shares, right, with the intention of making a profit, right, that is considered an investment. Also, or another example would be things like if I purchase this house, right, and I'm planning to rent it out, right, to make rental income. So that is also considered an investment. Okay, I've got a very interesting question here. So they say money makes more money. What if you don't have money, then how? Okay, so that's I think that's what some of us have in mind. Okay, so at the end of the day, there's a lot of different strategies, right, in terms of making money. Okay, so in the interest of time, I will not be able to go into detail, right? But the short answer, or maybe some tips I could leave with this person who just asked this question would be things like some interesting concepts, like the concept of pre-orders. Yeah, so for example, you can always sell first and buy later. Yeah, make a sale, right? And then after that, once you've gathered enough interest, make a sale, and then you can purchase the product. Also, that's one way. The other way would be things like the concept of consignment. Also, I'm not sure if you have heard of this concept called consignment before, but consignment means taking a product, without paying first, right? Taking a product, and then you can actually, they'll probably give you a terms, maybe for 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, and then from there you can actually make a sale. Yeah, make a sale, and then once you have made the sale, you can pass the profits to the person who passed you the products. Yeah, so that's the concept of consignment, and it's very good because at the end of the day, it's literally risk-free, or the only risk you have is if you damage the product, then you have to pay for it. But other than that, it's a way for you to make a sale, make an income, right? And that's how you actually can make money if you don't have money. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. This is a good question. This is something that I occasionally teach as well. Okay, so I see there's a lot of questions. It's very good. Okay, so I find my money flow out very fast each month. What are some ways I can reduce my expenses? Okay, so great question. Okay, so I think the question here, right, is the component of your cash flow. The component of your cash flow. So instead of looking at what are some of the ways you can reduce your expenses, or let me rephrase that. Besides looking at some ways you can, or on top of looking at some ways you can reduce your expenses, the key is to think, what is it that you are spending on, right? Different components. So we want to break it down further, your expenses. What are some of the components that you are spending more of your money on? Yeah, maybe based on my experience, some of them have shared things like food. I'm spending a lot on food. I was splurge on food. Yeah. So start to see what are some of the components, or is it shopping? Is it shopping? Yeah. So these are some of the things that you can actually look into. All right. So that's the first step, identifying what are the components in your expenses that you're spending most on. So the next step will be to think, how can I stop, right? Or how can I reduce the money from going out so fast? Yeah, so it could be things like maybe doing a bit of budgeting. So maybe, for example, in a month you're spending $1,000 on food. Yeah, so maybe you could tell yourself things like, or maybe for this month I want to spend only $500 on food. Yeah, and you put aside the budgeting, right? To budget your expenses. Okay, and the last way I could think of would be how to control the outflow of your money. Okay, what I mean by that is because of the technology, right? A lot of things are cashless. So maybe you could think of ways on how to prevent you from spending money more fast. Okay, things like your credit card, your PayNow, and maybe one way you could do, is to convert, back from cashless to cash. Yeah, so that will give you a very, very useful or very helpful way to visually see, where your money is going. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I've got this question, right? It says, what is a good amount of salary that I should set aside for investment and assets every month? Okay, so that's a good question. Okay, so for this question, I can share with you my take on it. Okay, but you can, for a more accurate advice, please talk to your financial advisor or your financial consultant. Okay, so firstly, it depends on what are your financial goals. Okay, what are your financial goals, and what is it that you want to achieve, and what is it that you want to at the end of the day get. Okay, so some of them I've heard people putting aside maybe about 10 to 20% in terms of investments, right? Whereas others who are more aggressive in terms of accumulating their investments of their portfolio, they might even put a bit more. Okay, so this is just a ballpark figure, a rule of thumb, right? For the exact amount, right? Please speak to your financial consultant, your financial advisor. Okay, good. So at the end of the day, it still goes back to the components of our personal financial plan, right? So this question that you have just asked, it will fall under the asset component, right? So how do you convert your cash flow? Yeah, how do you convert your cash flow to form part of your assets? Okay, so I've got another question. It says, what do you think are the essential life tech work skills we should pick up now for the future? Okay, so this one is a bit beyond the topic of personal finance, but it's a great question. Okay, I think now the trend is in digitalization. So probably you could explore things like digital media, explore things like social media. I think one of the areas will be things like big data, data analytics. Yeah, so I think this is one area you can actually think of or start to see if it's something that is suitable and relevant for you. So like what we've shared earlier in today's session, Skills Future, right? Skills Future Singapore has a wide range of programs, and probably you could start to see if there's any area, or any courses that might have caught your interest in terms of picking up a new skill or learning a new skill. Yeah, so from there, probably it could be something useful, okay, something useful for the future. So one more thing would be things like probably AI, artificial intelligence, virtual reality. So these are moving forward, probably what some of the essential life skills that could be useful for the future. Also, good question. Okay, so I think there is okay, so I think there's one last question over here that has okay. Okay, so there's no more questions. So thank you so much for your time. Okay, with that, we've come to the end of today's session, right, of the NSA e-nuggets series. So if you find our talks useful, do like and share the video with your family and friends to help them pick up these useful tips at their own pace and convenience. So to learn more about the course Financial Competence for Modern Singaporeans and other NSA courses by SPEC, you can contact them via WhatsApp at 8031-8318 or email secretariat@spec.org.sg or visit their website. So please call 6478-5029 or visit nsa.org.sg to explore the many learning opportunities for seniors aged 50 and above. All right, so this is actually the last segment of the NSA e-nuggets series. If you'd like to review the previous episodes, feel free to share or feel free to take a look at it on the Facebook page or YouTube page. So do like and follow the C3A Facebook page to be notified on the new content in the future. And with that, thank you so much and goodbye.